The Election in Georgia. Chapter 1. The Campaign begins. The late morning sun bathed the town square of Marietta, Georgia, in a warm golden light, casting long shadows across the cobblestone paths. Banners fluttered in the breeze, their bold colors proclaiming the start of the mayoral election campaign. At the center of the square, a small stage had been set up, surrounded by folding chairs filled with townsfolk chatting eagerly. Linda, 40 Olden, stood backstage, adjusting her blazer, her dark hair pulled into a neat bun. Her hazel eyes sparkled with determination as she reviewed her speech cards, her voice steady as she rehearsed her opening lines. Today was the first major event of her campaign for mayor, and she was ready to inspire her community with her vision for a better Marietta. Ava Dwendleblem, Linda's daughter and campaign manager, stood beside her, clipboard in hand, her auburn curls bouncing as she checked the schedule. "We're on time, Mom," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The sound system's ready, and the crowd's growing." "You've got this," Linda smiled, squeezing Ava's shoulder. "Thanks, sweetheart. I couldn't do this without you." Ava returned the smile, her green eyes reflecting her mother's determination. She'd taken a leave from her marketing job to manage Linda's campaign, believing in her mother's dream of improving schools and infrastructure in their small town. Noah, 22, Linda's son, hovered nearby, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his jeans, his dark hair tousled from the wind. He was proud of his mom, but the scrutiny of a political campaign made him uneasy. He'd seen how harsh the local news could be, and he worried about the toll it would take on their family. "You sure you're ready for this, Mom?" he asked, his voice low. Linda turned to him, her smile unwavering. "I've never been more ready, Noah. This town needs change, and I'm going to make it happen." Noah nodded, forcing a smile, but his unease lingered. Tom, 50, Linda's husband, stood a few steps away, his phone pressed to his ear, his brow furrowed. He'd been her biggest supporter, helping her craft her platform and rallying community leaders to back her. But today, he seemed distracted, his voice hushed as he spoke into the phone. "I'll handle it," he said, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. "Just keep it quiet." He hung up quickly as Linda approached, slipping the phone into his pocket with a forced smile. "Everything okay?" she asked, her tone light but curious. "Just a work call." Tom lied, his blue eyes avoiding hers. "You're going to be amazing out there." The family gathered for a quick hug before Linda took the stage, the crowd erupting in applause as she stepped into the spotlight. "Good morning, Marietta," she began, her voice ringing out with confidence. "I'm Linda Harper, and I'm running for mayor because I believe in this town. Together, we can improve our schools, fix our roads, and build a future we're all proud of." The audience cheered, their enthusiasm infectious, and Ava beamed with pride, snapping photos for the campaign's social media. But the mood shifted when Linda's opponent, Mr. Harris, a slick businessman with a reputation for hardball tactics, took the stage after her. His gray suit was impeccable, his smile calculated as he addressed the crowd. "I admire Mrs. Harper's passion," he said, his tone smooth. "But Marietta needs a leader with integrity. Some candidates have secrets, dark secrets that could undermine our trust. The crowd murmured, and Ava's stomach twisted. Was Harris bluffing, or did he know something? Noah, standing at the edge of the crowd, noticed his father slipping away during Harris's speech, his face pale, his steps hurried. Tom disappeared around the corner of the square, pulling out his phone again, his movements furtive. Noah frowned, his unease growing. His dad had been acting strange all week, late-night calls, sudden excuses to leave the house. Was he hiding something? Noah glanced at Ava, who was busy handing out campaign flyers, and decided to keep his suspicions to himself for now. Backstage, Linda stepped down from the podium, her cheeks flushed with adrenaline, her smile wide, as supporters swarmed her with congratulations. Ava joined her, her clipboard now a flurry of notes. That was incredible. "Mom," she said, hugging her tightly, "we're off to a great start." Linda laughed, her tension easing. "Thanks, Ava. Let's keep the momentum going." But her smile faded as she noticed Tom's absence. "Where's your dad?" she asked, scanning the crowd. Ava shrugged, her own thoughts elsewhere. Just then, Ava's phone buzzed with a new message. The sender listed as unknown. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened it. "Ask your dad about the money from 10 years ago." Her breath caught, her mind racing. Money! 10 years ago! She glanced at her father, who'd just returned to the square, his forced smile back in place as he rejoined the family. Ava's instincts as a campaign manager kicked in. She couldn't let this distract her mother. Not today. But the message gnawed at her, a seed of doubt planted deep. Linda, oblivious to Ava's turmoil, continued to greet supporters, her energy unwavering. Noah approached Ava, his expression troubled. "Did you see Dad leave during Harris's speech?" he whispered, his voice low. Ava nodded, her own suspicions growing. "Yeah, and I just got this," she said, showing him the message. Noah's eyes widened, his unease turning to alarm. "What does that mean?" he asked, but Ava shook her head. "I don't know, but we need to find out quietly." The chapter closed with the family standing together in the town square, their smiles for the cameras hiding the tension beneath. Linda basked in the crowd's support, her dream of becoming mayor within reach. While Tom's secret loomed like a storm on the horizon, Ava clutched her phone, the anonymous message, a ticking bomb, and Noah watched his father, his trust shaken. The campaign had begun, but so had the unraveling of their family. The truth, waiting to be uncovered in the heart of Georgia. Vanderbuk iuk atedikima hamwedka. Hans Toysendino. Conflict! An anonymous text about Tom's past plants doubt in Ava. While Noah notices his father's suspicious behavior, setting the stage for family tension as Linda's campaign begins. Notes: the chapter establishes the small-town Georgia setting, introduces the family dynamics, and plants the seeds of doubt with the anonymous message, creating a foundation for escalating drama. The election in Georgia. Chapter 2. Shadows of the Past. The Harper family home in Marietta, Georgia, was a cozy two-story house with a wraparound porch, its white paint glowing under the midday sun. Inside, the living room buzzed with energy as Linda and her team reviewed the morning's campaign event. Flyers and laptops covered the coffee table, and the scent of coffee filled the air. Linda, 48, sat on the couch, her blazer now off, her hazel eyes bright with excitement as she scrolled through social media feedback. "The turnout was better than I expected," she said, her voice filled with optimism. "People really connected with our message." Ava, Grandefum, sat across from her clipboard now replaced with a tablet, her auburn curls tied back as she typed notes. "The photos are getting tons of likes," she said, her green eyes focused. "We're trending locally. Linda Formayer is picking up steam." But her mind was elsewhere, replaying the anonymous text she'd received at the town square. "Ask your dad about the money from 10 years ago." She hadn't told Linda, not wanting to burden her mother on the first day of the campaign. But the message gnawed at her, a puzzle she couldn't ignore. Noah, 22, leaned against the doorway, his dark hair still tousled from the wind, his hands in his pockets. He'd been quiet since the event, his thoughts on his father's strange behavior. Tom had slipped away during Mr. Harris's speech, and Noah had seen the tension in his dad's face when he returned. Now, Tom sat in an armchair, his phone in hand, his blue eyes darting to the screen every few seconds. Another call came in, and he stood abruptly, muttering, "I'll be right back," before stepping onto the porch. Ava and Noah exchanged a glance, their suspicions growing. "That's the third call today," Noah whispered, his voice low. Ava nodded, her jaw tight. "And that text? I need to know what it means." She waited until Linda was distracted, talking to a volunteer about the next event, then slipped upstairs to her father's office, Noah following close behind. The room was cluttered with files and old campaign signs from Tom's days on the city council, a reminder of his own political past. Ava rifled through the desk drawers, her heart pounding. 10 years ago, Dad was on the council," she said, her voice a whisper. "If there's money involved, it might be in his old records." Noah hesitated, his unease growing. "What if it's nothing? Ava, we could be stirring up trouble for no reason." But Ava shook her head, pulling out a dusty file labeled 2015 Finances. She flipped through it, her eyes scanning the pages, until she found a series of payments marked consulting fees from a company called Blue Ridge Partners, $50. Solo, paid in cash, with no clear explanation. "This doesn't look right," Ava said, showing Noah the file. "Consulting fees in cash. That's not how Dad operates." Noah frowned, his stomach twisting. Blue Ridge Partners. I've heard that name before. They were involved in a land deal that went bad. People said the council was bribed to approve it. Ava's breath caught, the anonymous text echoing in her mind. If Dad took a bribe, that's huge. Noah, it could ruin Mom's campaign. Downstairs, Linda laughed with her team, oblivious to the storm brewing above. Tom returned from the porch, his face pale, his hands shaking slightly as he pocketed his phone. The call had been from an old associate, a man tied to Blue Ridge Partners, demanding Tom keep quiet about their past deal. Tom had thought that chapter of his life was closed, a mistake he'd buried after leaving the council. But someone knew someone was watching, and they were using Linda's campaign to drag him back into the light. Ava and Noah descended the stairs, the file hidden in Ava's bag, their expressions carefully neutral. Linda looked up, her smile fading as she saw their faces. "Everything okay?" she asked, her tone light but curious. Ava forced a smile, her heart racing. "Yeah, just needed to grab something," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Noah nodded, but his eyes darted to Tom, who avoided his gaze, his guilt a silent weight. That evening, as the family sat down for dinner, the tension was palpable. Linda shared her plans for the next campaign event, her enthusiasm a stark contrast to the silence between her husband and children. Ava's phone buzzed with another anonymous message. "Tell your mom," or "I will." Her heart sank. The pressure mounting. She glanced at Noah, who gave her a subtle nod. They needed to confront Tom. But not yet. Not until they had more proof. Tom, meanwhile, felt the walls closing in. He'd taken the money to secure a better future for his family, to fund Linda's dream of opening a community center. But the decision had haunted him, and now it threatened to destroy everything. He looked at his wife, her face glowing with hope, and felt a pang of guilt so sharp it took his breath away. He needed to protect her, but at what cost? The chapter closed with the family gathered around the dinner table, their smiles forced, their secrets simmering beneath the surface. Linda's campaign was gaining momentum, but the anonymous messages and the shadows of Tom's past were a ticking bomb, ready to explode. Ava clutched the file in her bag, her resolve hardening. She'd uncover the truth, no matter what it cost. Word count. Conflict. Ava and Noah discover evidence of Tom's possible bribery, while another anonymous text increases the pressure, and Tom struggles with his guilt, setting the stage for a deeper family divide. The chapter deepens the mystery with the discovery of the financial records, escalates tension with the second anonymous message, and highlights Tom's internal conflict. All within the warm Georgia setting, the election in Georgia. Chapter 3. The Opponent's Move. The Harper family kitchen was filled with the aroma of pancakes and coffee as the morning sun filtered through the windows, casting a warm glow over the hardwood floors. Linda, 48, stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with a practiced hand, her hazel eyes bright. Despite the long campaign days, she hummed a tune, her optimism unshaken after the success of her first event. "We've got a town hall tonight," she said, glancing at Ava, who sat at the table, scrolling through her tablet. "I want to focus on education. Reform." People loved that in the square. Ava, 25, nodded, her auburn curls bouncing as she typed notes. But her mind was elsewhere. The file she and Noah had found yesterday, evidence of $50 in cash payments to Tom from Blue Ridge Partners 10 years ago, sat heavy in her bag. The anonymous text, "Tell your mom," or "I will," had kept her awake. The pressure mounting. She glanced at Noah, 22, who was pouring orange juice, his dark hair still messy from sleep. His expression mirrored her own unease, their shared secret, a silent weight between them. Tom, Fremity, entered the kitchen, his blue eyes shadowed, his smile forced as he kissed Linda's cheek. "Smells great," he said, but his voice lacked warmth. Another call from his old associate had come last night, a reminder to keep quiet about the Blue Ridge deal. The guilt was eating him alive. He'd taken the money to fund Linda's community center dream, but the cost was now threatening her campaign. He sat at the table, avoiding Ava's gaze, Sensing her suspicion, Noah broke the silence, his voice casual but pointed. "Dad, you seemed off at the square yesterday. Everything okay?" Tom's hand froze on his coffee mug, his heart racing. "Just busy with work," he lied, his tone too quick. Linda turned from the stove, her brow furrowing. "You've been on edge lately," she said, her voice gentle but curious. "Anything I should know?" Tom forced a chuckle, shaking his head. "Just stressed about the campaign, that's all." Ava's phone buzzed. Another anonymous message. "Blue Ridge Partners? Ask him." Her stomach twisted. She couldn't ignore this anymore. She excused herself, slipping into the living room, Noah following close behind. "We need to talk to him," she whispered, showing him the message. "This isn't going away." Noah nodded, his unease turning to resolve. "But we can't tell Mom not yet. It'll crush her." That evening, the town hall was packed, the air buzzing with anticipation as Linda took the stage, her blazer sharp, her smile radiant. She spoke passionately about education reform, earning applause from the crowd. Ava stood backstage, managing logistics, while Noah watched from the audience, his eyes on his father, who sat near the front, his face tense. Mr. Harris, Linda's opponent, took the stage after her, his gray suit gleaming under the lights, his smile predatory. "Mrs. Harper paints a pretty picture," Harris began, his voice smooth. "But let's talk about integrity. 10 years ago, a land deal with Blue Ridge Partners caused a scandal in this town. Some council members took bribes to approve it. Council members like Tom Harper." The crowd gasped, murmurs rippling through the room. Linda's smile faltered, her eyes darting to Tom, who went pale, his hands gripping the armrests. Ava, backstage, felt her heart stop. Harris knew, and he was using it against them. Noah turned to his father, his voice a hiss. "Is it true, Dad? Did you take a bribe?" Tom's silence was damning, his eyes filled with panic. Linda, still on stage, tried to regain control, her voice steady. "Those are baseless accusations. Mr. Harris, my husband has always served this town with honor." But the crowd's whispers grew louder, their trust shaken, and Linda's campaign was suddenly on shaky ground. Backstage, Ava confronted Tom as soon as the event ended, her voice trembling with anger. "Tell me it's not true, Dad," she said, her green eyes blazing. Tom looked away, his voice barely a whisper. I made a mistake. Ava, I took the money to help your mom's dream, to build the community center. I thought I was doing the right thing." Ava's breath caught, her world tilting. "You took a bribe, and now it's going to ruin Mom's campaign," she said, her voice breaking. Noah, standing beside her, shook his head, his trust in his father shattered. Linda joined them, her face pale, her voice trembling. "What's going on?" she demanded, looking between her husband and children. Ava hesitated, the anonymous texts echoing in her mind. But she couldn't hide it anymore. "Mom, Dad took a bribe, $50. Zero from Blue Ridge Partners. 10 years ago." Linda's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. "Tom, how could you?" she whispered, her dream of becoming mayor slipping away. The chapter closed with the family in crisis, the town hall a turning point that exposed Tom's secret to the public. Linda stood on the edge of the stage, her campaign in jeopardy. While Tom's guilt threatened to tear them apart, Ava clutched the file, her resolve hardening. She'd protect her mother, no matter the cost. Noah watched his family fracture, his faith in his father broken, the Georgia night closing in around them. Word count. 100. Conflict. Harris publicly accuses Tom of taking a bribe, forcing Ava to confront her father, who admits to the payment, shattering Linda's trust and jeopardizing her campaign. Notes: the chapter escalates the drama with Harris's public accusation, focuses on Tom's confession, and highlights the family's emotional fallout, setting the stage for further conflict. The election in Georgia. Chapter 4. A Family Divided. The Harper family home in Marietta, Georgia, was shrouded in silence as the clock struck midnight, the tension from the town hall still lingering like a storm cloud. The living room, usually a place of warmth, felt cold. The campaign flyers on the coffee table, a stark reminder of the dream now in jeopardy. Linda, 48, sat on the couch, her blazer discarded, her hazel eyes red from crying. The revelation of Tom's bribe, $50, from Blue Ridge Partners, to approve a shady land deal 10 years ago, had shattered her trust. Her campaign for mayor, now tainted by scandal. Tom, 15, stood by the window, his blue eyes shadowed, his hands trembling as he stared into the dark Georgia night. He'd confessed to Ava and Noah after Mr. Harris's accusation at the town hall, admitting he'd taken the money to fund Linda's dream of building a community center. But the truth had come at a cost. His family was fracturing, and Linda's campaign was on the brink of collapse. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said, his voice breaking, turning to face his wife. "I wanted to give you that center, Linda. I never meant for this to happen." Linda's voice was cold, her pain raw. "You lied to me for 10 years. Tom, you let me believe we were a team, and now my campaign, my dream is ruined because of you." She stood, her hands clenched, her voice trembling. "How am I supposed to face this town, knowing my husband took a bribe?" Tom stepped toward her, his eyes pleading. "I'll fix this, I swear. I'll do whatever it takes." But Linda turned away, her heart too broken to hear him. Ava, 25, sat at the dining table, her tablet forgotten, her auburn curls falling into her face as she stared at the file she'd found the evidence of Tom's bribe. The anonymous texts. "Ask your dad about the money from 10 years ago and tell your mom, or I will had led to this moment." But the victory felt hollow. She'd protected her mother by uncovering the truth. But at what cost? She glanced at Noah, 22, who sat across from her, his dark hair messy, his expression a mix of anger and betrayal. "We can't let this destroy Mom's campaign," Ava said, her voice firm. "We need to figure out who's behind the texts and how Harris knew." Noah's jaw tightened, his trust in his father shattered. "I want Mom to withdraw," he said, his voice low. "This is too much. Harris will keep using this against her, and the town won't trust her anymore." Ava shook her head, her green eyes blazing with determination. "No, Noah, Mom's worked too hard for this. We fight back. We find out who's doing this and clear Dad's name. If we can," Noah sighed, his frustration evident. But he nodded, unwilling to let his mother's dream die without a fight. The next morning, the local newspaper ran a front-page story. Mayoral candidate's husband, linked to decade-old bribery scandal. The article detailed Harris's accusations, citing credible sources about Tom's involvement with Blue Ridge Partners. Linda read it at the kitchen table, her hands shaking, her face pale. "They're calling for me to withdraw," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "They say I can't be trusted." Ava sat beside her, her resolve hardening. "We'll fight this, Mom. I'll dig into Harris's sources, see if we can discredit them." Tom entered the kitchen, his guilt a visible weight. "I'll go public," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I'll admit to the bribe. Take full responsibility. Maybe that'll save your campaign." Linda's eyes flashed with anger, her voice sharp. "And ruin our family's reputation completely." "No, Tom, you've done enough." She stood, brushing past him, her pain a barrier he couldn't breach. Ava spent the day at the campaign office, poring over public records, trying to trace the anonymous texts. She discovered that Blue Ridge Partners had ties to Harris's business interests. The land deal Tom had approved had benefited a company Harris was linked to. Was Harris the one behind the texts, using Tom's past to sabotage Linda's campaign? Ava shared her findings with Noah, who'd been canvassing the town, gauging public reaction. "People are torn," Noah said, his voice heavy. "Some still support Mom, but others think she knew about the bribe." That evening, Ava received another anonymous text. "Withdraw, or the proof goes public." Attached was a scanned document, a signed agreement between Tom and Blue Ridge Partners, detailing the $50 zero payment. Ava's heart sank. The proof was real, and the sender had it. She showed Noah, her voice trembling. "We're running out of time," she said. "If this gets out, Mom's campaign is over." The chapter closed with the family divided, Linda's campaign hanging by a thread. Ava clutched the new evidence, her determination unshaken, while Noah's resolve wavered, torn between protecting his mother and exposing his father. Tom stood alone, his guilt a prison, as Linda prepared for the next campaign event, her dreams slipping further away. The Georgia town watched, their whispers a constant reminder of the stakes, the truth closing in like a gathering storm. Word count 120. Conflict. Linda learns of Tom's bribe, fracturing the family, while Ava uncovers Harris's connection to Blue Ridge Partners, and a new anonymous text with proof escalates the threat to the campaign. But on notes, the chapter focuses on the emotional fallout of Tom's confession, Ava's investigation, and the external pressure from the media and anonymous sender, deepening the family divide. The election in Georgia. Chapter 5. The anonymous threat. The Marietta campaign office was a flurry of activity as volunteers prepared for Linda's next event, a community barbecue meant to rally support. Flyers were stacked on tables, and the hum of conversation filled the air. But the atmosphere was tense. Linda, Fotte Art, stood by a whiteboard, her hazel eyes scanning her speech notes, her face pale but determined. The newspaper article linking Tom to a bribery scandal had shaken her campaign, and the whispers of doubt from the town were growing louder. She adjusted her blazer, forcing a smile as she spoke to her team. But inside, her heart was heavy with betrayal. Alva, 25, sat at a desk in the corner, her tablet open, her auburn curls tied back as she traced the anonymous texts that had upended their lives. The latest message, withdraw, or the proof goes public, had come with a scanned document, a signed agreement between Tom and Blue Ridge Partners, detailing the $50 Eldadunda bribe. Ava's green eyes were sharp with focus as she cross-referenced the document with public records. Her discovery of Harris's ties to Blue Ridge Partners fueling her suspicion. Was Harris behind the texts, using Tom's past to sabotage Linda's campaign? Noah, 22, stood by the window, his dark hair catching the sunlight, his hands clenched in his pockets. He'd spent the morning talking to townsfolk, and the divide was clear. Some still believed in Linda, but others were calling for her to withdraw, citing Tom's scandal as proof of her untrustworthiness. Noah's trust in his father was broken, and his conversation with Ava last night had solidified his stance. "I think Mom should withdraw," he said, his voice low as he approached Ava. "This is only going to get worse." Ava looked up, her jaw tight. "We can't let Harris win like this." "Noah," she said, her voice firm, "if he's behind the texts, we need to prove it. Mom deserves a fair shot." Noah sighed, his frustration evident. "And what if Dad's guilt buries her? That proof, it's real. Ava, if it goes public, she's done." Ava nodded, her resolve unshaken. "Then we find out who's sending these texts before they can release it." Tom, 50, lingered outside the office, his blue eyes shadowed, his guilt a constant weight. He'd avoided Linda since her cold rejection last night, her words, "You've done enough," echoing in his mind. He'd taken the bribe to fund her community center dream, but the cost was now tearing his family apart. His phone buzzed with another call from his old associate, the same man who'd warned him to keep quiet. Tom ignored it, his hands shaking. He needed to come clean, to take responsibility, but the fear of losing Linda forever held him back. At the barbecue, Linda worked the crowd, shaking hands and smiling for photos, her voice steady as she spoke about her plans for Marietta. But the whispers followed her, and a local reporter cornered her, microphone in hand. "Mrs. Harper, how do you respond to allegations that your husband took a bribe from Blue Ridge Partners?" the reporter asked, her tone sharp. Linda's smile faltered, her heart racing, but she held her ground. "Those allegations are unproven," she said, her voice firm. "My campaign is about the future of this town, not the past." Ava watched from the sidelines, her stomach twisting as the reporter pressed further. She pulled Noah aside, her voice urgent. "We need to find out who's feeding Harris this information," she said, showing him a new anonymous text. "You have 24 hours." Noah's eyes widened, his frustration boiling over. "This is getting out of hand." "Ava, we need to tell Mom now." Ava hesitated, the pressure mounting, but nodded. They couldn't keep this from Linda any longer. They approached Linda after the event, pulling her into a quiet corner of the park, the barbecue still buzzing with activity. "Mom, we need to talk," Ava said, her voice trembling as she handed Linda her phone. The texts and document on display. Linda's face paled as she read, her hands shaking. "Who sent this?" she demanded. her voice a mix of fear and anger. Ava explained her suspicions about Harris, but admitted they had no proof yet. Linda turned to Tom, who'd followed them, his guilt written across his face. "Did you know about these texts?" she asked, her voice sharp. Tom shook his head, his voice breaking. "No, but they're right. I took the money, Linda. I thought I could bury it, but I was wrong." Linda's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. "You've put everything I've worked for at risk," she said, turning away. Her campaign and her marriage on the brink of collapse. The chapter closed with the family at a breaking point, the anonymous threat looming larger than ever. Linda stood alone in the park, her dream of becoming mayor slipping away, while Ava and Noah vowed to uncover the sender, their trust in their father shattered. Tom watched his wife walk away, his guilt a prison, the Georgia evening closing in around them. Word count, Flottet wondered. Conflict. Ava and Noah reveal the anonymous texts and proof to Linda, who confronts Tom, further fracturing the family, while the pressure from Harris and the public mounts, threatening the campaign. Notes: the chapter escalates the stakes with the reveal to Linda, focuses on her confrontation with Tom, and highlights Ava and Noah's determination to fight back, all within the vibrant Georgia setting. The election in Georgia. Chapter 6. Digging deeper. The Harper family home in Marietta, Georgia, was a battleground of emotions as the morning sun rose, casting a pale light through the kitchen windows. Linda, 48, sat at the table, a cup of coffee untouched in front of her, her hazel eyes staring blankly at the newspaper headline. Harper campaign rocked by bribery allegations. The barbecue event had done little to quell the rumors, and the anonymous texts Ava had shown her last night. Withdraw, or the proof goes public, were a ticking bomb. Linda's campaign for mayor was hanging by a thread, and her marriage to Tom was in tatters. Ava, 25, stood by the counter, her auburn curls pulled into a messy bun, her green eyes sharp with determination as she scrolled through her tablet. She'd spent the night digging into Harris's connections to Blue Ridge Partners, the company that had paid Tom the $50, bribe 10 years ago. Her research had uncovered a web of financial ties. Harris had invested in a subsidiary of Blue Ridge, profiting from the land deal Tom had approved. Ava was convinced Harris was behind the texts, using Tom's past to sabotage Linda's campaign. But she needed proof. Noah, 22, paced the kitchen, his dark hair messy, his frustration boiling over. "We should just go public," he said, his voice sharp. "Tell everyone Dad took the bribe. Let him take the fall. And maybe Mom can salvage her campaign." Ava turned to him, her eyes narrowing. "That'll destroy Dad." Noah, "And it won't stop Harris. We need to prove he's behind this. Then we can fight back." Noah sighed, his hands clenching into fists. "I don't care about Dad anymore. He did this to us." Tom entered the kitchen, his blue eyes shadowed, his guilt a constant weight. He'd heard Noah's words, and they cut deep. "I deserve that," he said, his voice low, his hands trembling as he sat at the table. Linda looked at him, her expression cold. "You deserve worse," she said. her voice trembling with anger. "You've put everything I've worked for at risk. Tom, I don't even know who you are anymore." Tom's head dropped, his voice breaking. "I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." "Linda, I swear," Ava interrupted, her voice urgent. "I think Harris is behind the texts," she said, showing Linda and Tom her research. "He profited from the Blue Ridge deal, and now he's using Dad's bribe to take you down. I just need more time to trace the texts." Linda's eyes softened slightly, her trust in Ava unwavering. "Do what you need to," she said, her voice steady despite her pain. "But we're running out of time." That afternoon, Ava met with a tech-savvy friend from college who helped her trace the anonymous texts. They discovered the messages were sent from a burner phone, purchased at a local gas station a week ago. The gas station's security footage showed a man in a hooded jacket buying the phone, his face obscured, but Ava recognized the jacket. It was the same one Harris's campaign manager, Greg, had worn at the town hall. "It's him," Ava said, her voice triumphant. "Harris is behind this." Noah, meanwhile, confronted Tom in the garage, his anger spilling over. "Why did you do it?" "Dad," he demanded, his voice shaking. "Why take the money?" Tom sighed, his eyes filled with regret. "I wanted to give your mom her dream," he said, his voice breaking. "The community center she'd worked so hard for it, but we didn't have the funds. Blue Ridge offered the money, and I thought it was a one-time thing." Noah shook his head, his trust shattered. "You sold your integrity," he said, walking away, leaving Tom alone with his guilt. At the campaign office, Linda prepared for a press conference, determined to address the allegations head-on. She stood before the cameras, her blazer sharp, her voice steady. "I was unaware of my husband's actions 10 years ago," she said, her hazel eyes meeting the crowd's. "But I am committed to transparency. I will not withdraw. I will fight for Marietta, because you deserve a leader who won't back down." The crowd's reaction was mixed, some clapping, others whispering, but Linda held her ground, her dreams still alive. Ava returned home, her evidence against Harris in hand. But another anonymous text arrived. "You're too late. Check the news." She turned on the TV, her heart sinking as a breaking news report aired. "New evidence in Harper bribery. Scandal, signed, document leaked." The document, the signed agreement between Tom and Blue Ridge Partners, was now public. Harris's team claiming they'd received it anonymously. Linda's campaign was on the brink of collapse, and the family was out of options. The chapter closed, with the family reeling from the leak. Linda's campaign in free fall. Ava clutched her evidence, her determination unshaken, while Noah's anger at Tom deepened. And Linda faced the press, her dreams slipping away. Tom stood alone, his guilt a prison, the Georgia night, a dark reminder of the stakes. The truth was out, and the fight for redemption had just begun. Word count. Adontoises. Conflict. Ava uncovers evidence linking Harris to the texts, but the anonymous sender leaks the signed document, exposing Tom's bribe to the public, putting Linda's campaign in jeopardy. Notes. The chapter escalates the drama with the public leak, focuses on Ava's investigation, and highlights Noah's confrontation with Tom, deepening the family's emotional divide. The election in Georgia. Chapter 7. Facing the fallout. The Marietta Town Square was a battlefield of opinions as the morning unfolded, the air thick with tension following the leaked document exposing Tom's $50 zero-euro bribe from Blue Ridge Partners. Protesters gathered outside the campaign office, their signs demanding Linda's withdrawal, no trust, no voter, while supporters rallied on the other side, holding banners that read, "Linda for Marietta." Inside the office, Linda, Audit H, stood by the window, her hazel eyes watching the crowd, her blazer wrinkled, her face pale. The press conference had done little to quell the storm, and her campaign for mayor was teetering on the edge. Ava Dodelweim sat at a desk, her auburn curls loose, her green eyes blazing with determination as she reviewed the security footage from the gas station. The hooded man buying the burner phone, Harris's campaign manager, Greg, was the key to proving Harris was behind the anonymous texts. But the leak of the signed document had shifted the narrative, painting Linda as complicit in Tom's corruption. Ava's evidence against Harris was solid, but she needed to act fast to save her mother's campaign. Noah Dorntito stood by the door, his dark hair messy, his hands clenched into fists. The fallout from the leak had deepened his anger at Tom, and he'd spent the morning arguing with supporters, defending his mother's integrity. "We can't let Harris win," he said, his voice sharp as he turned to Ava. "But Dad's made this impossible. Maybe he should just turn himself in." Ava shook her head, her voice firm. "That won't help Mom now. Noah, we need to expose Harris, show the town he's the one playing dirty." Tom Fifty lingered in the back of the office, his blue eyes filled with guilt, his hands trembling as he watched the protests. The leak had been his worst nightmare. The signed document, a damning piece of evidence he couldn't deny. He'd taken the bribe to fund Linda's community center, but the cost was now tearing his family apart. He approached Linda, his voice low. "I'll go to the press," he said, his voice breaking. "I'll take full responsibility. Say you knew nothing. Maybe that'll save your campaign." Linda turned to him, her eyes flashing with anger, her voice trembling. "You think that'll fix this? Tom, the town thinks I'm a liar because of you. I can't even look at you right now." She walked away, her heart breaking, leaving Tom alone with his guilt. He sank into a chair, his head in his hands, knowing he'd lost her trust maybe forever. Ava took her evidence to a local journalist, a trusted friend who'd covered the campaign fairly. Harris's campaign manager bought the burner phone used to send the texts, she said, showing the footage and the purchase records. "He's been trying to sabotage my mom's campaign with Dad's past. You need to run this story now." The journalist nodded, impressed by Ava's determination, and promised to publish the exposé by evening, potentially shifting the narrative in Linda's favor. Noah, meanwhile, organized a rally with Linda's supporters, taking to the streets to counter the protests. He spoke passionately, his voice ringing out over the crowd. "My mom is the leader Marietta needs," he said, his dark eyes fierce. "She didn't know about my dad's mistake, and she's being targeted by Harris's dirty tactics. Don't let him win." The crowd cheered, their support renewed, and Noah felt a spark of hope, his faith in his mother unshaken. That evening, the journalist's story broke. Harris' campaign manager linked to anonymous texts in Harper's scandal. The article detailed Ava's evidence, painting Harris as the mastermind behind the leaks, using Tom's past to undermine Linda's campaign. The town's reaction was swift support for Linda's surge. While Harris faced backlash, his own integrity now in question, Linda watched the news from the campaign office, her heart lifting slightly. But the damage to her family remained. Ava and Noah returned home, their spirits buoyed by the exposé. But the rift with Tom was deeper than ever. Linda sat at the kitchen table, her face etched with exhaustion, her voice soft as she spoke to her children. "I don't know if I can win this election," she admitted, her hazel eyes filled with tears. "But I'm so proud of you both for fighting for me." Ava took her hand, her voice firm. "We're not done yet. Mom, we've got 1 day left. We'll win this together." The chapter closed, with the family facing the fallout. Their unity tested, but their resolve strengthened. Linda prepared for the final day of the campaign, her dream still alive, while Ava and Noah stood by her. Their fight against Harris far from over. Tom watched from the sidelines, his guilt a constant reminder of his mistake. The Georgia night, a quiet backdrop to their struggle. The election was tomorrow, and the truth would decide their fate. Word count. Conflict. Ava exposes Harris's role in the texts, shifting public opinion in Linda's favor. But the family remains divided, with Linda rejecting Tom and Noah struggling with his anger. As the election looms. Notes? The chapter focuses on Ava's success in exposing Harris, the family's emotional struggle, and Noah's rally, building toward the climactic election day. The election in Georgia. Chapter 8. Election Day. Election Day dawned in Marietta, Georgia, with a crisp morning breeze. The town square alive with the hum of democracy. Polling stations were set up in the community center, their doors open to a steady stream of voters, while campaign volunteers handed out last-minute flyers. Linda, Fortlater, stood outside the center, her blazer sharp, her hazel eyes bright with a mix of hope and exhaustion. The past week had been a roller coaster. Tom's bribery scandal, the anonymous texts, Harris's sabotage, but Ava's expose linking Harris to the texts had shifted the tide, renewing support for Linda's campaign. Today was the final test, and she was ready to face it. Ava, to Ensife, stood beside her, her auburn curls tied back, her green eyes scanning the crowd as she coordinated volunteers. The journalist's story had turned the narrative in their favor, exposing Harris's dirty tactics. But Ava knew the election was still a close race. She glanced at her mother, pride swelling in her chest. "You've got this, Mom," she said, squeezing Linda's hand. Linda smiled, her voice steady. "Thanks, Ava. We've come too far to give up now." Noah, 22, worked the crowd, his dark hair catching the sunlight, his voice ringing out as he encouraged voters to support Linda. He'd been angry at Tom, his trust shattered by the bribery scandal. But the rally he'd organized yesterday had reminded him of his mother's strength. He still couldn't forgive his father, but he'd fight for Linda until the polls closed. He spotted Harris across the square, his gray suit gleaming, his smile forced as he shook hands with voters. The backlash from the expose had hit Harris hard, and Noah felt a spark of satisfaction. He'd underestimated their family. Tom, 50, lingered at the edge of the square, his blue eyes shadowed, his guilt a constant weight. He'd stayed away from the campaign office since Linda's rejection. His confession of the $50, each a bribe from Blue Ridge Partners, a wound that wouldn't heal. But he couldn't stay away today. Not on election day. He approached Linda hesitantly, his voice low. "I'm here if you need me," he said, his hands trembling. Linda's expression softened slightly, but her voice was firm. "I appreciate that, Tom, but I need to do this on my own, right now." Tom nodded, stepping back, his heart aching, but his resolve to support her unshaken. As the day unfolded, the town square buzzed with activity, voters lining up to cast their ballots, their voices a mix of support and skepticism. Linda worked tirelessly, shaking hands, speaking to reporters, her message of hope and change resonating with many. Ava monitored social media, her tablet a lifeline as she tracked voter sentiment, her fingers flying across the screen to respond to comments. Noah rallied supporters, his energy infectious, his faith in his mother unwavering. But the tension spiked when Harris held a last-minute press conference, his voice booming over the square. "I stand by my campaign," he said, his tone defiant. "The Harper family can't be trusted. Tom Harper took a bribe, and Linda claims she didn't know. Do you believe her?" The crowd murmured, some nodding, others shaking their heads, and Ava's heart sank. Harris was playing his final card, banking on the scandal to sway undecided voters. Ava pulled Noah aside, her voice urgent. "We need to counter this," she said, her green eyes blazing. "Let's get Mom on stage one last time. Remind people why they should vote for her." Noah nodded, and they set up an impromptu speech, Linda taking the stage as the sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over the square. "Marietta," she began, her voice steady, "I've been honest with you. My husband made a mistake. But I didn't know, and I won't let his past define our future. Vote for me, because I believe in this town, and I'll fight for you." The crowd erupted in applause, their support renewed, and Ava felt a surge of hope this could be enough. As the polls closed, the family gathered at the campaign office, their nerves frayed but their spirits high. The results came in slowly, the race neck and neck, until the final count was announced. Linda Harper, mayor of Marietta, by a narrow margin of 52 votes. The office erupted in cheers, volunteers hugging, tears of joy streaming down Linda's face. Ava and Noah embraced her, their pride overwhelming, the family's unity a fragile but real victory. Tom watched from the sidelines, his heart swelling with pride for Linda. But his guilt kept him at a distance. Linda met his gaze, her expression softening, a small step toward forgiveness. "We need to talk," she said, her voice quiet but firm, and Tom nodded, hope flickering in his chest. The chapter closed with the family celebrating their hard-fought victory. The Georgia night alive with possibility. Harris was defeated. The truth had set them free. And the Harpers were ready to heal, one step at a time. Word count. Dr. 200. Conflict. Harris makes a final push to discredit Linda. But Ava and Noah rally support, leading to Linda's narrow victory, while Tom takes a tentative step toward reconciliation with Linda. No. Kate's. The chapter resolves the election with Linda's win, focuses on the family's unity in the face of adversity, and sets the stage for healing, concluding the story with hope and redemption.